How high will the rookies be picked tonight? What round will the tight end run begin? And which of these two leagues truly sets the FFPC ADP? Join us tonight for 2 solid hours of live pick-by-pick draft coverage of the first FFPC 150 Classic leagues of the season, the Genesis and Revelations leagues. We've got a great show for you. Gerald Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com, with your hosts Eric Balkman and Gerald Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here's Eric Balkman and Gerald Elliott.
Hey, thanks a lot, Rob. Salutations to all the Bulkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Gerald Elliott. Gerald, I'm going to welcome you aboard right now, and just the draft is behind us. We have some actual real fantasy football drafts to be talking about now. I know you've had experience covering live pick-by-pick coverage here with the FFPC before, but this is exciting because not only do we get the rookies, Farrell, but we get the actual veterans and seeing where everything is going to go, setting everything up for the Football Guys Players Championship, the Kentucky Fantasy Football Championship main event, checkered flag, and, of course, the FFPC main event. It's going to be awesome tonight, man.
It is, Balky, and I've had people call me from around the country, both FFPC players and KFFSC players, and told me how much they enjoy this tonight. This is where they sit their draft boards and very much where their year starts. And so this is a big deal that we're stepping into, or that at least I'm stepping into. How many years have you guys been doing this and broadcasting this show?
It's been quite a few. I mean, well, this is the 10th season of the show. I feel like we didn't start doing live pick-by-pick coverage for the first year or two. So this is probably like year 8, year 9 of doing it, right around there. And it's been a lot of fun, for sure.
Well, the players love it, and what a lineup you put together.
Oh, yeah, this is tremendous. And this is all in the FFPC players, not shying away from any of the competition. They want to bring it and go against the best, which they will be doing. Coming up on tonight's show, once again, 2 hours. It's $150 classic drafts, the first ones of the season with the FFPC. We're going to cover the Genesis draft in the first hour. We're going to cover the Revelations draft in the second hour. And if you want to follow along with the draft boards, you can do so at our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/High Stakes Fantasy Football. The streaming draft board is up right there. I want to give a shout out to the chat room right now. It is packed in there, obviously, as it normally is for these episodes. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there if you want to connect with us on Twitter. The show is at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. Farrell is at Gerald Elliott. And remember to check out and win some serious cash at the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. And if you want to chime in and give us a call, we're probably going to get some drafters tonight giving us a call to talk about their drafts. It's 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVER. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. My best friend and audio engineer, Bryce, is actually commissioning tonight, so he has the night off from the show. However, our mutual friend and producer, Rob, working very tirelessly hard on getting this broadcast out to you tonight. All right, just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. Want to let everybody know Dynasty Startups are live again at the FFPC, myffpc.com. We have plenty of Dynasty Startups popping off this weekend. And don't forget, the 2021 Football Guys Players Championship Early Bird is live. The drafts are already underway $500,000 for first place, $100,000 for second, and you can get a free $35 FFPC credit when you sign up right now under that early bird. The best ball drafts are open as low as $5 right now, too, so check out the Cinco de Best Ball at myffpc.com. The main event, early bird for the FFPC, is live. You can save $100 on your team before May 31st. The checkered flag competition is, of course, live at kffsc.com, as well as the Draft Masters there as well. I want to get into our lineup here for the Genesis coverage, the Genesis draft. The 2020 champ is Brad Kazima. He is drafting tonight, trying to defend the belt. Give you the whole draft order right now, what we're looking at. John Terry, Sexy Sperms, a.k.a. not an effing 26er, is picking first tonight. Dan Priestner, Smokin' Joe, is picking second. Our good buddy Hudson Kern-Reeve, the Truth Warrior Supreme, picking out of the 3-hole. Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com, who's obviously, we always give him credit. He does a lot of great work with the ADP data over at FantasyMojo.com. Give that website a subscription because it is well worth it if you're drafting the FFPC. Darren's drafting from the 4 spot tonight. Andrew Lund, Saquon, the 26er, in the 5 spot. Kulaga, aptly named by Jason Kulaga, who's drafting that squad out of the 6 spot. Bitcoin, another great Biplab Mandel team name. Bitcoin, drafting 7th in the spot tonight. Stuart Keene, another former guest of the show. LOB, the 26er, is out of the number 8 hole. Matthew Flagger, Banks 50 is the team name. He is drafting out of the 9th. The first team where we have a partnership here, it's Brent Studebaker, Rafael De Fonseca, stud dynasty 26er out of the 10th. And then another one, Jake Valish and Quint Ostermiller, Spree Meat, the 26er, out of the 11 hole. And, of course, the defending champ, Brad Kazima, Kaz of the North, another 26er, drafting out of the 12 spot tonight. All right, we already have a full round in, Farrell. I want to go through this here. It is very heavily running back and actually tight end dominated. A little bit of a surprise at the first receiver off the board. Maybe not. We'll get into it. John Terry kicks things off tonight with Christian McCaffrey at the first spot. Dan Priestner takes Dalvin Cook at the 2. Jonathan Taylor is your selection by Hudson Kern-Reeve at the 3. Tight end position is cracked at number 4 by Darren Armani. I know if you talk to Darren, he will tell you the advantage of having an elite tight end in these leagues has been pretty important. So take that for what it's worth as Armani takes Travis Kelce at the 4 spot. Saquon Barkley is going to go to Saquon, of course. Andrew Lund takes him at the 5 hole. Alvin Kamara, the fantasy MVP for many people last year. He goes in the at the 106 tonight to Jason Kulaga takes him at the 6. Derrick Henry is going to be the 6th running back taken by Biplab Mandel here tonight in the first round. And then Stuart Keene follows it up with Cam Akers out of Florida State, out of the Los Angeles Rams via Florida State. He is going to be the 108 selection, the 7th running back in the first 8 picks tonight by Stuart Keene. George Kittle, the 2nd tight end chosen by Matthew Flagger at the 109, followed by Ezekiel Elliott to the tandem of Studebaker and De Fonseca at the 110. The first receiver and the only receiver going off the board in the first round is indeed Tyreek Hill to Valish and Ostermiller, and then Darren Waller, the 3rd tight end off the board in the first round to Kaz of the North. That's Brad Kazima, and that completes your first round of the Genesis draft tonight. Farrell, I think the thing that stands out to me, when's the last time, even in an FFPC draft, have you seen 3 tight ends selected in the first round of the draft?
I think it's fantastic, and I think we're going to see it more often. And it will be interesting to see who, if either of those teams were to come back and take the number 4 tight end, Balky, which I say tonight will be Mr. Pitts. And I wonder if any of these 3 teams will double up on tight end in the 3rd round. Congratulations to the number 10 team, Studebaker and Alphonse Seca, I believe is how you pronounce that. Ezekiel Elliott, I think, is a tremendous pick there. I've been catching as much news as I can from Dallas, and it all seems to be very, very positive about the physicality of him. And, you know, Biplab is one of our most wonderful friends. And, you know, if you're going to be beaten in this kind of event, you might as well be beaten by a friend. His first round running back selection, fantastic. And I'll wait for you to reveal his second-round selection, but I think he's off to a great start.
You know, and we will get to the second round shortly, as it's just wrapping up. But one other thing I want to bring up in the first round, Farrell, for most of the spring in the FFPC, we have seen Devonta Adams go off as the top receiver off the board. Obviously, with the Aaron Rodgers stuff, which is crazy to think that, you know, this is the first podcast we've done in like 9 days, but all this stuff happened, you know, after we were last on the air with the Aaron Rodgers mess. And I got to believe that it obviously played a part here in Tyreek Hill going at the 111, the only receiver drafted in the first 18 picks tonight, which is crazy. Farrell, is that something that you would do too if you're looking to grab the first receiver off the board? Is it Hill over Adams for you at this point with the uncertainty of the Green Bay Packer quarterback situation?
At this point it is. And if it doesn't correct itself, in Green Bay, and Adams will continue to slide, and we'll see guys moving up the boards like Diggs, Jefferson, and Brown. But you know, I was in this situation, and I took Tyreek Hill. And if you go wide receiver in the first round, you've got to look at that mix of what your running backs are going to be. And I think the drop off as we get towards the end of that third round is significant for our team out of the 11th hole. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes back with, because I'm sure he'll go running back in second and third round.
Well, let's get to the second round here too, as Kazima follows up his Waller pick with Joe Mixon at the 201. This starts a running back run, Farrell, of 7 straight rushers. DeAndre Swift, the 202 tonight, to Valish and Ostermiller. Nick Chubb to Studebaker and Dale Fonseca at the 203 to pair with Ezekiel Elliott. Aaron Jones going to Matthew Flagger here at the 204 as his number one running back. And then the next 3 teams all have started off running back. Stuart Keene went Cam Akers in the first round. He gets Austin Eckler in the second. Biplab Mandel goes Derrick Henry in the first round. He gets Najee Harris in the second, the first rookie off the board tonight that we've seen. And then, of course, Jason Kalaga goes with Alvin Kamara in the first round. He gets Antonio Gibson in the second. That means the first 7 picks of the second round were all running backs. Moving on, Andrew Lund at the 208 takes Devonta Adams as the second receiver off the board. Now, just to bring that into perspective here tonight, for what we've seen in this draft, that is a total of 15 running backs off the board before the second wide receiver is taken. Certainly kind of unprecedented, at least as long as I've been doing this. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. But Devonta Adams goes to Andrew Lund. Fantasy Mojo gets Stephon Diggs to pair with Travis Kelce. Justin Jefferson to Hudson Kern Reeves. So he starts off with a pair of sophomores. He goes Jonathan Taylor in the first, Justin Jefferson in the second. Another team, the 5th team tonight to start off running back, is indeed Dan Priester. He gets Clyde Edwards-Helaire to go with Dalvin Cook. And to round things up, in the second round, A.J. Brown, the final pick of the second round here tonight in Genesis. A.J. Brown going to John Terry to pair with Christian McCaffrey. I think the story of the second round here, Farrell, all these running backs going off the board. Now, knowing what you know and seeing what we're going to see as we get closer and closer and we go throughout the summer and we see all these running backs and receivers get drafted early, you think we're going to see more of this? You think we're going to see a ton of running backs go early? Or is this just a case of like, look, we're in early May, you want to secure the touches, we'll worry about receivers later? You think that's the issue? Or is the running back officially back with all the rushers we've seen taken in the top 24 picks?
The latter, Balky. The running back is officially back. And I think what's fascinating about this is Najee Harris. There's your movement. By the time we get into August, Najee Harris will be the first running back in the second round. And if you take a look at the guys after him, Mixon, Swift, Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Austin Eckler, and I absolutely love Austin Eckler, but I don't know if I want any of those players in front of him. And when I could get Harris later, I was very, very happy about it, and anyone else who did should be. But Harris, with everything we're hearing and everything you see him doing or watched him do in college, we are going to expect that to translate to the NFL game. Henry and Harris, a great pick. I absolutely love what our number one team, John Terry's doing. You can't argue with McCaffrey. A lot of running backs off the board. At the 24th pick, A.J. Brown, and I think in this situation, he's as good as any of these receivers, Diggs, Jefferson, and Adams. And congratulations on that pick, John Terry.
Yeah, it's been interesting as we look at the first two rounds here. A ton of run, and with the FFPC, if you're not for the uninitiated that are just joining the podcast tonight, you only have to start 2 running backs, 2 receivers. You get 2 flexes, 1 tight end as well. So it's not like you have to start all these running backs, but obviously that is where the emphasis has been tonight so far. We're going to get back to the third round here of pick-by-pick coverage live on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. But before we get to that, I do want to take a phone call. We're going to go out to the 803 caller. Who is this? You are live with Farrell and Balky here on the HSFF Hour.
Balky, Farrell at Stud Dynasty. How are y'all?
Well, we're doing good. It is good to hear from you. Drafting out of the 10 spot tonight, here is Brent Studebaker and of course, his co-manager, Rafael de Alfonseca, the Stud Dynasty, a member of the 26ers, a card-carrying member of the 26ers. You were out of the 10 spot tonight. First of all, you're on the clock right now in the 4th round. What are you thinking?
It's totally not a 26er move, but I'm taking Patrick Mahomes here. I'm going for the point.
The first quarterback off the board will go to Studebaker and Dale Fonseca at the 4:03 tonight, Patrick Mahomes. Now, this is an interesting draft that you've got going here, Brent, because you get Ezekiel Elliott at the 110, perfect. Nick Chubb at the 203, all right. Farrell Elliott was proven correctly. Kyle Pitts is indeed the 4th tight end off the board, and he is the number 1 tight end to you guys, Brent, and you get him at the 310. I know what a significant dynasty player, what a fan of dynasty fantasy football you are. When you and Raphael were talking about this, how much of Kyle Pitts was he a target here for you in the 3rd round, trying to get the untapped upside of the rookie here?
Well, like y'all said, in this concept, having a tight end is very important. Kittle went 104 to Fantasy Mojo. I was actually going to go Kittle and Mahomes, but once Kittle or Kelsey went off the board, I said that I want to get Pitts in the 3rd round because of the tight end premium for Atlanta. With all the rumors of Julio possibly being traded after June 1st, that's a big guy I wanted to get on my team.
Brent, if I could ask you what – go ahead, Farrell. Go ahead.
Well, you inverted Kittle and Kelsey there, but I know exactly what you meant. Kelsey first, Kittle second. And I would, if I had been in the number 9 position, you would have never seen Pitts. Because if I'm going to come in with 1 tight end in this situation, I might as well come in with 2. And it was an interesting pick to me that Matthew at the number 9 spot didn't grab Pitts, but nevertheless, congratulations. I like the way your team's working out very much.
Thank you.
Brett, just curiously, when you look at Nick Chubb, the 203, and I know there's been, some beat writer rumblings and some stuff on social media about Kareem Hunt potentially being less involved this year. Did that play into the selection of Chubb at all? The fact that you think maybe, Chubb really will be the bell cow there and Hunt will be closer to a more traditional backup. What's your feeling on what Chubb does here in 2021?
Well, the thing with Nick Chubb is Cleveland has probably the best offensive line in the league. They only trust Baker so much. They're only going to let him. That whole offense runs through Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But Nick Chubb is the bell cow for that team, and he's just going to keep getting all the work. If he can get me 65, 70% of the carries, I mean, I don't think it's going to really matter what Kareem Hunt does.
Talking with Brent Studebaker here, the pick 10, the Stud Dynasty 26er spot tonight, Elliott, Chubb, Pitts, Mahomes. You look at Kyle Pitts, obviously I think anybody who selects him as high as you do, you expect big-time production year one. What are you looking at catches, yards, touchdowns-wise for Kyle Pitts here, Brent, in 2021?
For Pitts, I think Pitts in that offense, if they trade Julio, he's going to go over 1,000 yards, and he's probably going to have 10 touchdowns. Going into Pitts, Saquon, Andy, who is a 26er, he actually took Kyle Pitts 101 in our 26 2.0 draft. So 26ers set the ADP, so keep that in mind tomorrow when you're doing your rookie drafts.
Brent, is that where you would take him too in a dynasty? Would you in a rookie draft? Is in the FFPC, is Kyle Pitts your 101 in a vacuum?
Team needs, I would probably go Harris, but with how Pittsburgh's offensive line is so down, I'll take Kyle Pitts every day and log out, and I wouldn't think twice about it.
Brent, I know it's a big night for you. It is going to be an even bigger weekend with all of your rookie drafts you have going up. Good luck to you and Raphael the rest of the night here in the Genesis draft. Thanks so much for touching base. We'll talk to you again real soon, dude.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Brent Studebaker, ladies and gentlemen, chiming in. The 110 stud dynasty selection was Ezekiel Elliott. He followed up with Nick Chubb, Kyle Pitts, and then Patrick Mahomes in the fourth. That is Brent Studebaker and Raphael Del Fonseca's team drafting tonight. A lot of rookie drafts for him tomorrow, too. Maybe he's got Kyle Pitts on the brain. Maybe it's the right choice. Could be. You're hearing from only the best here tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Let's get back into the third round. When we last left you, A.J. Brown was the final selection of the second round to John Terry. He follows it up with DeAndre Hopkins at the 301. Michael Thomas goes to Dan Priestner, and then DK Metcalf to Hudson Kern-Reeve. We get a little mini running back run here. Miles Sanders goes at the 304 to Darren Armani. J.K. Dobbins, the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens, at the 5 spot, the 305 to Andrew Luck. And then you have David Montgomery to Jason Kulaga here. He starts off, he's the only team in this draft or in this league to start off running back, Kamara, Gibson, and then Montgomery at the 306. We see Calvin Ridley go off the board to Biplab Mandela, his number one receiver. And then Keenan Allen to Stuart Keene right after that, followed by Terry McLaurin to Matthew Flagler at the 309. We already heard the Kyle Pitts selection from Studebaker at the 310. Then it was Allen Robinson, the penultimate pick of the third round. Allen Robinson goes to Jake Valish and Clint Ostermiller. And then Chris Carson, the number 2 running back, to pair with Joe Mixon for Brad Kazima here at the end of the third round. Farrell, did you have a favorite pick of the third round here? Because now we're seeing a lot more receivers get selected here in the third round, 7 of them to be exact in the third round, along with the rookie Kyle Pitts. Do you have a favorite selection here in the third round by any of these teams?
Team number 2, Dan's team. I was very pleased to see that he could get Michael Thomas as his number 1 receiver in the third round. That's something that you would have never imagined last year. I think the players in this round lined up very well. As I said, Pitts would have never got. When it came down to team number 9, took McLaurin, a very, very good ball player, but I love the receivers that he could have got on the other side in the fourth round. And possibly some of the running backs. So Pitts would have gone earlier in this round for me. But that being said, this round pretty much sticks to the chalk, I suppose, Balky. That's how I would characterize it. And I am impressed with the stacking of Eckler and Allen. That would be team number 8, I believe. Is that?
Yep, that's Stuart Keene. Yep, exactly.
Another one of those famous 26ers. Yeah, so that's
Genesis, it's chock full of 26ers, and it has been that way for a while. But yeah, Eckler and Keenan Allen, that's a lot of targets there, Farrell, in Los Angeles.
I'm still waiting to see what he'll do at quarterback, and if he makes the move. If he makes the move with Herbert, I will give this guy a heads up in this draft because I really would like that team's chances. So good job there. Those 26ers making it happen. That's Stewart, right?
Yes, exactly. Farrell, why are you high on the Chargers this year? Just kind of curiously with
the Ron Meyer 2-packer told me I had to be, and then I like everything they did. And when they came out of the draft and they took the offensive lineman Slater out of Northwestern, this started going in the right direction. And then, if you recall, Balky, in a conversation you and I had, I was very, very high on the Tennessee wide receiver.
Josh Palmer?
Yes, Palmer. And Palmer was we were discussing Terrence Marshall, and Marshall, in these fantasy drafts, continues to go ahead of Josh. But Palmer, I think, is a very, very good add for this team. I think they just got everything right in the draft, and I love the quarterback. I was talking with a fellow agent this week that was telling me that the veteran quarterbacks that all go and work out around Herbert, they all don't want to be on the field. A lot of the veteran players say, not necessarily want to work out with him because he pushes everybody and goes too hard. They refer to him as War Admiral. And these are guys that are 10 and 15 years his senior. So he's building quite a reputation for himself amongst everyone in the league, and I think he's building a reputation for fantasy ballers as well.
Let's get into the fourth round here, Farrell, as it is now complete in the Genesis draft. DJ Moore was the first selection off the board to Brad Kazima. That's his number one receiver, DJ Moore at the 401, followed by Josh Jacobs to Belish and Ostermiller at the 402. You heard the live pick on the air, Patrick Mahomes to Studebaker and Dalvin Seca at the 403 tonight. Myles Gaskin, the number 2 running back, to Banks 50. That is the team owned by Matthew Flagler. It's interesting. Myles Gaskin and Aaron Jones maybe could have been at one point in the offseason the number 1 and number 2 running backs of the Miami Dolphins. As it stands, Jones is with Green Bay, Gaskin with the Dolphins. Both have starting jobs. A couple of tight ends off the board. The only 2 tight ends that go off the board here in the fourth round. Mark Andrews, tight end 5. He goes to Stuart Keene at the 405 tonight, the 406. TJ Hawkinson, number 1 tight end for Biplab Mandel. Julio Jones, he's still bumping around. He goes in the 4th round tonight, almost a full round after Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones off the board at the 407. And then we get a trio of interesting running backs. Travis Etienne, a first-round draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars, goes to Andrew Lunt as his number 3 running back. Mike Davis, ostensibly the starting running back in Atlanta. My apologies to the Dizzle for my poor advice on a best ball draft that he was in a while back. Mike Davis goes to Fantasy Mojo. That's Darren Armani as his number 2 running back. Chase Edmonds off the board after that as the final running back selected in the 4th round. He is Kern Reeves' number 2 running back behind Jonathan Taylor. And then a couple of Dallas Cowboy receivers here. Amari Cooper at the 411 to Dan Priester. CeeDee Lamb is the 3rd receiver selected by John Terry and the final pick of the 4th round tonight. So, Farrell, a lot to unpack in this round. I'll try to get into this as best I can, starting with the Myles Gaskin pick at 404 to Matthew Flagler. So I think I was guilty of this. I just assumed the Dolphins would sign somebody or draft somebody. They did neither. Gaskin is ostensibly the starter there. Your thoughts on how good he can be this season, or do you think it is going to end up being more of a committee there, obviously with Malcolm Brown still bumping around in Miami as well?
No committee in Miami. Myles Gaskin is the guy. And if you go back and look at the games he played, he missed some time due to COVID. He was banged up some other games. This guy had a very, very successful season, both as a rusher and catching the ball. He caught almost everything that was thrown to him. This is a very good player. This is an ascending player, and Miami has shown us what they're going to do. They're going to count on this player, and there's a lot of touches here. I'm a little surprised to see him in the 4th round, but based on how many running backs are coming off the board, you got to take what's left. And, he may continue to move up, at least on the list of these running backs, as we get closer into in the season. Patrick Mahomes, as we talked about with the caller, is first quarterback off the board, and I don't know if he had to take him there, but he did, so he's going to live with him. Josh Jacobs, that's about where he's going, and I think that'll prove to be a terrific value. If you can get Josh Jacobs early in the 4th round, you're going to be very, very happy about it. Balky, I was shocked to see. What about you? I was shocked to see those 2 wide receivers from Dallas last to the very end of the 4th round.
And that's interesting that you bring that up, Farrell, because I think I think many fantasy owners are buckling up for a big Dallas season this year, right? Because we saw in, albeit small sample size, limited action until Dak Prescott went down last year, but everybody was awesome. Elliott was pretty good. Prescott was fantastic. Jarwin was looking good. You had the 3 receivers, in Dallas all looking good. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb having a pretty good rookie season until Prescott went down. Amari Cooper, we know what he's capable of. And I wonder, Farrell, and feel free to weigh in on this, is it because there are so many options there that people are looking for the big boom picks, as we get to the 4th and 5th rounds, and they see those guys in Dallas as, well, they're going to have to, if they're going to boom, one, maybe 2 players are going to have to get hurt for this to make it worthwhile, and I can go with somebody else who I know is going to be a number 1 receiver, like a DJ Moore or anybody like that. So I wonder if that's why they slipped. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud.
There's a lot of balls in the air there, Balky, and I think that Cooper and Lamb are going to find them, and no one should hesitate to think, especially with the tight end situation with this club, no one should hesitate to think that these 2 guys are not standout receivers. And the 3rd receiver, Gallup, 59 catches last year. I think he's a little overlooked and a little drafted a little high. If those 2 things could exist, I don't think he has universal appeal to drafters, but there's always that one guy that focuses on the Cowboys, or maybe drafts one of these 2 guys and then goes and gets Gallup early. I think Gallup stays around his 50 to 60 catches a year. Explosive numbers with a healthy Dak Prescott for Cooper and Lamb. And it's interesting that they're interchangeable in the draft. I'll say this about Mike Davis. Mike Davis, yes, and now like we talked about Gaskin, I think Gaskin deserves the attention and the focus of that offense as a running back. Mike Davis, I'm a big fan of. We talked about it on the show for a long time, but I still think Atlanta makes a move at that position, and quite honestly, Boggy, I just haven't seen it. He's an excellent pass catcher, got close to 60 last year, but he doesn't quite put together enough to be the number 1 bell cow running back, and I think Atlanta will have to address that before the season starts. Mike Davis, I think, a little high here. I would have rather – we're running out of running backs. I think the next couple of rounds might show that. But I think I would have rather have had Williams or perhaps James Robinson around later.
We are going to be kicking off the 7th round here shortly in the FFPC Genesis Draft. Once again, if you want to pop in and draft one of these teams yourself, go to myffpc.com. Plenty of $150 classics, or if you want to get into the Football Guys Players Championship, try to take your shot at $500,000 or the FFPC main event. Again, another $500,000 grand prize, all at myffpc.com. Don't forget about the checkered flag competition and the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship main event at kffsc.com. So you mentioned it here, Farrell, and we'll go through round 5 here shortly, but rounds 5 and 6 combined, only 3 running backs off the board. Now, that could be because everybody concentrated on running backs so early. That could be because running backs are more valuable this year, too. We'll check out revelations here coming up at the top of the hour and see what they did there. But getting into the 5th round of the Genesis Draft, the first running back or the first pick of the 5th round was indeed the rookie, Javontay Williams out of North Carolina. He is now a Denver Bronco. He is the 2nd running back for John Terry at the 501. Chris Godwin, the number 3 receiver, drafted by Dan Priester here at the 502. And then we get a pair of quarterbacks, Josh Allen to Kern Reeve, Kyler Murray to Darren Armani, and then a massive, massive wide receiver run. 7 straight receivers go off in the 5th round. The first rookie receiver to go is the number 2 receiver for Saquon. That is Andrew Lund at the 505 tonight. He snares Jamar Chase. Then we get Mike Evans to Jason Kalaga. We have Robert Woods to Biplab Mandel. T. Higgins, the 2nd Bengals receiver drafted this round. T. Higgins off the board, the 508 to Stuart Keene. Then you have Deontay Johnson, the first Pittsburgh Steelers receiver we've taken. There's a few to choose from there. In fact, we'll get a couple more coming up here in the next couple rounds. Deontay Johnson goes off the board to Matthew Flagger here at the 509. Adam Thielen, the 2nd Vikings receiver, the first receiver drafted by Brent Studebaker and Rafael Del Fonseca at the 510. Brandon Ayuk, the number 1 49ers receiver, is the number 3 receiver for Jake Belish and Clint Ostermiller. And rounding things up in the 5th round is indeed the 3rd quarterback selected this round. He is Lamar Jackson, and he goes to the defending champion, Brad Kazima, Kaz of the North, at the 512. So throw it all the way back to the start here. The 501, Javontay Williams, Farrell. Now, he gets drafted by the Denver Broncos, who trade up to get him early in the second round when they already had Melvin Gordon. How soon is it before Javontay Williams is going to be the guy that you want to focus on as the starting running back for the Denver Broncos when you're deploying your fantasy lineups this season?
Very soon. I feel like we'll be looking at a 60-40 split, and I think with what might happen, we got a suspenseful summer in Denver with what might happen and what players might be packaged to acquire a certain quarterback from Green Bay. You think that this running back's not going to be one, and so it's fascinating scenarios. But I tell you, our drafters here are allowing team number one, John Terry, to get some very, very good football players. I really impressed with what he's doing, and I'm a little befuddled to see one of the quarterbacks that went before Lamar Jackson. And I'm thrilled to see that Mike Evans is finally off the board, a player that I think is going a little bit too late, a little bit later than he should be going.
We'll get into a little bit more fifth-round analysis here shortly, but before we do, I want to go back out to the phone lines. It is the 612 on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with Balky and Farrell. Who is this?
Hey, how you doing? It's Andy Saquon, the 26er from the 5 spot.
Andy, good to hear from you. Good to pop on tonight. No, so this is good because if we weren't going to take Andy's call, Farrell, I did want to talk about the Jamar Chase versus T. Higgins decision that he made. So, Andy, you could have had any Bengals receiver. You could have had Tyler Boyd, quite frankly. Why was it Jamar Chase for you over T. Higgins here in the 5th round?
Well, I knew the deep ball was an issue for him last year, and obviously the teammate connection between him and Joe coming from LSU, I just figured they'd hit the ground running, and he'd probably be the guy to go with.
The other decision and a correct one. It is a good decision.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that for sure. The other thing I should bring up with you, Andy, is the ATN pick the round before, so it's back-to-back rookies here with you, ATN and then Chase. When the Jaguars selected ATN with their second first-round pick this year, Urban Meyer said that he views ATN as a third down back, with James Robinson, Carlos Hyde being the 1-2 punch on the early downs. I'm assuming you do not agree with that. What are you thinking as far as your projection for ATN this season? Is he a top 20 running back? Is he going to be better than that? Even your thoughts on ATN, your 4th-round pick tonight in Genesis?
I think it's definitely possible. It kind of reminds me of the whole Kamara situation when they drafted him and Ingram was already in there. I don't think you spend that much capital on a passing down back. Again, he's going to have a familiarity with Lawrence. I think he's got more talent than Robinson. I got Robinson off of waivers all over the place last year, so I enjoyed him, but I think his run might be coming to an end. I think ETN's my number 1 running back in the rookie draft this year, behind Pitts, of course.
So that's interesting. So is Robinson a guy that you're not interested in drafting? I mean, he went in the 6th round tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit here. He went in the 6th round tonight. Are you just totally off Robinson then and just team ATN all the way?
Well, to be fair, I thought Robinson would slide to me and I'd be able to handcuff him that next pick, but he went a couple before me. The way running backs went in this draft so early, I felt the need to get 3 or 4 of them, and I wanted to shore up that backfield. So I'm a little concerned there might be a little bit of a split there. I think I got the better of the 2, but, yeah, I was sniping Robinson that round.
Were you surprised, Andy, when it got back to you in the second round? Were you surprised that Devonta Adams was staring you in the face as still only 1 receiver off the board?
It might be my demise. I was so intent on going running back, and the value just kept slipping to me. I was hoping someone would take him. They just wouldn't, so I had to do it. I think Rodgers is going to stay in Green Bay this year. I think there's a lot of noise, but I don't think he's going to end up leaving.
Farrell, go ahead. I know I just interrupted you with your question for Andy.
No, you really didn't. And yeah, I would have liked to have seen you go with Robinson in the 6th round. And I don't know exactly what kind of split we're going to look at in that situation, but Robinson put in a very, very good year last year, so the team's going to have to be successful for both these players to help fantasy drafters. So it's a tough situation, but I like your thinking to get both of them there, and I wish you had in this situation. It'd be nice to see how you would deploy them in your lineup, since Robinson would have been your fourth back. So it would have some head scratchers there on Sunday with this lineup. But yeah, this is a good team you're putting together, and you've made the perfect decision at the wide receiver position. I like always reaching for the guy with the upside, and Jamar Chase certainly has that.
Andy, you are about to be up here shortly. You already have, I'm looking at your roster here, you have 4 running backs, you have 3 receivers, nary a quarterback or tight end to be found. Are you looking to fill one of these positions here as you're about to be up in the 8th round, or are you going to build depth, continue to build depth at the running back or receiver position here?
Okay, now I'm up. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a quarterback with some rushing upside. I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. He had such a strong finish when they gave him the job. Yeah, I think he could be a top 5 guy if he doesn't screw it up.
Well, obviously you're thinking that the Philly's probably going to give him a fairly long leash, right? You know, they added Jalen Reagor last year. They get Devonta Smith in the first round this year. Dallas Goedert is an up-and-comer. Miles Sanders is effective out of the backfield. And quite frankly, you look at Jalen Hurts after he was named the starter last year, he put up some really good fantasy-worthy performances. And obviously, Andy, Hurts might be a bit of a steal for you here.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. It's getting to the point where you need to have a quarterback with the rushing upside if you want to compete in these leagues, especially with the drafters we have tonight. I'm hoping he comes through for me, though.
Well, you have definitely come through with a really solid performance so far here tonight. Good luck the rest of the way. Thanks so much for chiming in, Andy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Andy Lund, ladies and gentlemen. Saquon drafting from the 5-hole tonight. We will get back, and I'll tell you what happened in the 6th round fully. Before we do that, let's go out, not to the 612 this time. Let's go to the 610 on the HSFF Hour. You are on the air live with Balky and Farrell. Who is this?
Balky, Darren Armani. What's going on, brother?
It is Fantasy Mojo himself chiming in. Darren, this is normally a little bit earlier than we normally chat, because normally we you put together the pros versus Joes every year. We always talk a lot about that. Now, at that point. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Were you in Revelations last year and somehow you're in Genesis this year?
Yeah, I was. I did well the first couple of years in Revelations. I just wanted to switch it up, and I'm going to jump into the snake pit here with the 26ers, and
yes,
and watch them. They're killing themselves down at the end of the draft. I see like 4 out of the last 5 teams there. They're all fighting each other for the. They're what do you call it? I don't know, but yeah, I figured I'd mix it up.
You have, you have Studebaker and Valish and Ostermiller and Delfonseca and Kazima. You're right. They're all fighting for scraps here, and you're collecting the spoils here. One of those spoils, the first tight end off the board, Travis Kelce tonight. I pay attention to FantasyMojo.com. I know what the data says. The data says having an elite tight end gives you a pretty big advantage in these drafts, whether it be best ball or classic. So, Darren, was Kelce sort of a target for you, assuming that you thought the top 3 picks were going to be running backs?
I was kind of on the fence, but I ended up, hitting Kelce. This is a total points league, and he's going to be heads and shoulders above the rest of the guys there at tight end. And if you look, I have all the results from last year, so I went back and looked at the last couple of years of the winners of these leagues. And Kelce is a key component to finishing high. So what I'm missing out on running back here, obviously with Sanders and Davis, that may or may not work out. But I potentially have the number 1 tight end and number 1 quarterback on my roster. So shooting for the stars with those guys, and we'll fill in the gaps later.
I do want to we'll get into Miles Sanders here in a little bit, but I'm looking at your team right now. You do have the quarterback. You have the tight end. You have 3 running backs, 3 receivers. You're on the clock now, Darren. You could go a lot of different ways with your 9th-round pick. Which way are you going to go?
We went with Kenyon Drake, so I'm going to have to attack this running back position with some volume and, hope a couple of these guys emerge. I got a lot of timeshare situations. Sanders, we'll see. I mean, I think Sanders is still going to be the guy, and I hope Davis is going to be the guy. I heard Farrell saying they're probably going to bring somebody else in. I don't know who they would bring in at this point. I don't know if it's going to be anybody that's going to challenge him, but so I got to just be optimistic about that pick. So we'll. It is a little bit on the early side, but we know what the guys in the front end of the draft, they needed running back, so I had to pick my spot there.
Darren, as we go through this draft, I want you to pay attention to the existing Falcons depth chart and look for a favorite of the Dizzle as you move to your later double-digit rounds. University of Louisville running back Hawkins. So I want you to keep an eye out for that as you.
And he's already there, Farrell. He's already
on the
ready to go. Yeah. So
keep an eye on that.
Real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Miles Sanders pick because, Darren, I think over the last, for sure in 2020 he was polarizing, but he's been a pretty polarizing running back. He slips now into the early 3rd round here for you. You get him as your number 1 running back. Try to answer this as unbiasedly as you possibly can. But Miles Sanders, his upside, I mean, could he be a top 10 running back this year? The likelihood of that, your thoughts?
I don't know about top 10. I'm hoping top 15 still. I think, he was hurt a little bit last year. He got hurt in training camp. And I think they're just covering their bases and stocking up, having a contingency plan in place. And I'm optimistic he can still be the guy. They just need to, let him get into a rhythm there and let him roll. So we'll see how it goes. But the upside is there.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up with you, because you take Odell Beckham here in the 6th, you followed up with Juju Smith-Schuster in the 7th. These are 2 players that have already exhibited and have produced high-end fantasy seasons. However, I wouldn't say that's exactly been the norm for either one of these players as their career has unfolded. Who are you more excited about or think is more likely to break back out, the re-breakout this year? Odell Beckham in Cleveland, or is it Juju Smith-Schuster in Pittsburgh, even with the presence of Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool?
I'm hoping for Beckham to, finally establish himself and pay off on that the move that they made. Juju's no slouch. He finished wide receiver 16 last year, kind of very quietly. I think Claypool got all the attention because of his gigantic games that he was having.
Well, Farrell pumps
Juju's
him up on this show every single week, Darren. That's the problem. When you have Farrell Elliott pumping up Chase Claypool week in and week out on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, that's what all the pundits are going to be talking about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Farrell moves the markets with his opinions there. So
yeah, let's see if I can move the market this year, fellas, with a 17th round wide receiver that performs like Claypool. I'm looking for one. I want to let you know.
There you go.
Nice.
Darren, I hope you're right with Beckham because I got him in. I was looking over my dynasty teams after the NFL draft. I didn't realize how many shares of Odell Beckham I had, so I'm hoping you're right on that for sure. And good luck to you the rest of the way, sir, in this draft. You've certainly put up a competitive team here. Not to be trifled with, especially when you consider Kyler Murray in the 5th, Travis Kelce, the number 1 tight end in the 1st round. Good luck to you, and thanks for calling in, man. Thanks for all the work you do with the FFPC and Pros vs. Joes, man. Much appreciated.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Darren Armani, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to check him out on Twitter at Fantasy Mojo. Check out his website, fantasymojo.com. This is totally unsolicited. I'm telling you, if you play in the FFPC, you want to compete, a subscription to fantasymojo.com simply is a must, and it is super cheap. You'll be blown away when you see that you can get some pretty good data there for less single digits as far as the subscription price goes. Moving on here in the 6th round, Farrell. We left off with Lamar Jackson in the 5th. I'll try to rifle through this because I know we're falling behind a little bit. Dallas Goedert at the 601, followed by Dak Prescott here to Valish and Ostermiller. Kareem Hunt off the board, the number 3 running back to Studebaker. And then James Robinson, who we mentioned earlier. James Robinson is the number 3 running back to Flagler. Justin Herbert will be starting at quarterback. Farrell, you called it. It's the Chargers load up by Stuart Keene here at the 8th spot.
Way to go, Stuart.
And Keenan Allen in the 2nd and 3rd. He gets Justin Herbert here in the 6th. A bunch of receivers off the board after that. DJ Chark to Biplab Mandel. Kenny Goliday and Cooper Kupp to Kulaga and Lund, respectively. We already heard about Odell Beckham to Armani. Noah Fant is going to be the next tight end selected. He is tight end number 8 off the board tonight, if my math is correct. Then you have Tyler Lockett and Cortland Sutton wrapping up the 6th round. Starting off the 7th round, it is indeed Chase Claypool, the number 5 receiver for John Terry. Wow, that's pretty good.
Wow.
When you can have Chase Claypool as your number 5 receiver. Logan Thomas off the board after that as tight end number 9 to Dan Priestner, followed by Raheem Mostert, number 3 running back drafted by Hudson Kern-Reeve. Juju Smith-Schuster to Armani. Melvin Gordon to Saquon. That's Andy Lund. And then Russell Wilson will be starting at quarterback for Jason Kulaga. He drafting from the 6th spot tonight. Leonard Fournette and Michael Carter. Fournette to Biplab Mandel. Michael Carter, the rookie, to Stuart Keene. Joe Burrow off the board as the starting quarterback for Matthew Flagler. And then a trio of receivers. Jerry Jeudy to Studebaker. Tyler Boyd to Valish. And Deebo Samuel to Kazima. Moving on into the 8th round here. Ronald Jones is the 3rd running back drafted by Kazima. Then you have Evan Engram starting at tight end for Valish and Ostermiller at the 8:02. Laviska Shenault and Devontae Smith right after that, followed by Robert Tunyon to Stuart Keene. Trey Sermon, the number 4 running back, the 2nd rookie running back drafted by Biplab Mandel. He goes off the board tonight at the 8:06. Curtis Samuel, you heard the Jalen Hurts pick live on the air for Andy Lund. And then you get a bunch of running backs. James Conner to Darren Armani. Damian Harris to Kern-Reeve. Zach Moss off the board to Dan Priestner. And then Mike Gesicki will be John Terry's starting tight end here as he takes him at the 8:12. Now you say, okay, John Terry's he's forming a pretty good team here. Only got the 2 running backs. That might be an issue, but those receivers look great. Gesicki, that's not that great for a starting tight end. Well, he started off with the 9th round with another tight end. So he waits on tight end, Farrell, but he gets 2 of them back-to-back. Gesicki at the final pick of the 8th round, and then Irv Smith out of Minnesota is the first pick of the 9th round here tonight. Tony Pollard to Dan Priestner at the 9:02, followed by Will Fuller, the number 1/number 2/1A/1B, I'm not sure, in Miami this year. He's the number 3 receiver for Hudson Kern-Reeve. You heard the Kenyon Drake pick for Darren Armani. Tyler Higbee will be the number 1 tight end for Andy Lund as he goes off the board at the 9:05. The embattled Aaron Rodgers backs up Russell Wilson. Wow. If this was a disgruntled quarterback league, you would certainly give the title to Jason Kulaga right now as he gets Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers on his team. Hunter Henry will be backing up T.J. Hawkinson for Biplab Mandel, followed by David Johnson as the number 4 running back to Stuart Keene. Tom Brady, the Super Bowl winning quarterback, will technically be backing up Joe Burrow for Matthew Flagler this year, who gets Burrow in the 7th, Tom Brady in the 9th. Michael Pittman is the 3rd straight receiver drafted by Brent Studebaker and Rafael De Fonseca. And then you have A.J. Dillon and Jalen Waddle, the rookie receiver drafted by the Miami Dolphins. In the real draft, he is drafted by Brad Kazima here tonight in Genesis. A lot of picks here, Farrell, to unpack. Let's just kind of unfold the 9th round here. So we'll kick things off as we look at this from the picks that stand out to me. 901, Irv Smith. So you look at him in Minnesota. You already got Thielen and Jefferson there, Cousins throwing the ball. Dalvin Cook, obviously a threat out of the backfield. You think Irv Smith steps up and breaks out this year? You think he could be the type of guy that people draft him as a backup tight end, as John Terry did, but he ends up being like a top 8, a top 10 option this year in the FFPC?
No, not at all. And I don't like – this is where John's magic wand got a little bent out of shape here. He the tight ends that went after Gesicki and Smith, I like a little better with their upside. We're just certainly unknown about Higbee with his new quarterback and new locations for Henry and Jonnu Smith. But we've proven that the Vikings are not going to throw the ball much to the tight end. I don't care who he is. And we got to read between the lines with Gaskin because they drafted a young pass-catching tight end that you and I have are proponents of and have talked about on the podcast, and it's a kid Long out of Boston College. So I think that means that Gaskin is going to get a little bit less play. But, see, he was sitting at a golden moment where he could get the last of some of these better running backs at that 8-9 spot, and I really think that he might live to regret it. He's got 5 great wide receivers. He can only play 4 of them. I think I'd like to see what he's going to do running back wise. He's going to be chasing some guys. In the 9th round, I'm a little bit confused about why a couple of these teams are doubling up on quarterbacks. If you have Russell Wilson, you certainly don't need Aaron Rodgers. And perhaps Brady to back up Burrow. Burrow's an injury situation, but that's an expensive cost for a second quarterback with these very, very good players, these very good wide receivers that are still on board.
Yeah, just interesting, too. Matthew Flagler, who you're just referring to, gets Burrow and Brady at quarterback. Certainly courting the market on similarly named receivers. He gets Deontay, Devontae, and Devontae at receiver. Now, that is a formation I'd like to see in fantasy football going forward. Farrell, the other thing I want to bring up in the 9th round here with the New England Patriots tight ends, we'll get to the 10th round here shortly, but Hunter Henry goes to Biplab Mandel at the 9:07. Jonnu Smith goes off the board at the 10:07. The following round, he goes to Jason Kalaga there. Is that the way that you view the Patriots tight ends for fantasy purposes? Would you be drafting Hunter Henry over Jonnu Smith?
I've been interchanging them in my drafts, and now that would have been the stack. We can go back to our friend John Terry, who doesn't need any advice from me. But that would have been the stack I would have been interested to see at tight end, would it be a Henry and a Smith, because I believe we're going to look at a lot of 21 personnel there in New England, and Henry is more of a downfield threat, while Smith is more of the physicality threat and good yards after the catch, after contact. Both those players very interesting to me, Balky. I like them.
Moving on to the 10th round here, we have Brandon Cooks off. This is a big receiver run here in the 10th round. Brandon Cooks is the first receiver, or the first pick of the 10th round here. Brandon Cooks goes as the number 4 receiver to Brad Kazima, followed by Jarvis Landry to Valicia and Ostermiller. Antonio Brown, the number 3 receiver, in Tampa, is the number 5 receiver for Studebaker and Del Fonseca. Devontae Parker, we already talked about here to Flagler. Robbie Anderson, where is he going to end up in the pecking order for Sam Darnold in Carolina? That can only be seen once the NFL season starts. He goes to Stuart Keen as his number 3 receiver. Yikes. Rashad Bateman off the board after that to Biplab Mandel as his number 4 wideout. Jonnu Smith is the number 1 tight end for Jason Kalaga, and then Jalen Reagor to Andy Lund, followed by Marquis Brown. The number 1/number 2 receiver for Baltimore is indeed the number 4 receiver for Darren Armani. Cole Kmet getting a lot of steam here as a potential sleeper over the last 3 or 4 weeks here in the FFPC. He will be the 2nd tight end drafted by Hudson Kern-Reed. You have Michael Gallup going to Dan Priestner. Remember, Priestner took Amari Cooper in the 4th round at the 4:02. He gets Gallup here at the in the 10th round here. Beg your pardon. He took Cooper at the 4:11. He gets Michael Gallup at the 10:11. And then Naheem Hines, the final pick of the 10th round, goes to John Terry as his number 3 running back. All right, Farrell, let's unpack this a little bit here. I just brought this up, and I know Dizzle is not an Odell Beckham fan at all, but I brought it to just kind of bring it up in the chat room, thinking it out loud. Should we be drafting Jarvis Landry over Odell Beckham right now? I mean, this is a big difference here in ADP. You have Odell Beckham going at the end of the 6th round. You have Jarvis Landry going at the beginning of the 10th. Should those guys be closer together?
Yes. Beckham should drop, and Landry's going about where he should, and I really don't care for either of them. We noticed that their quarterback, I think, still is not drafted in this draft, and they have a wonderful offensive line. We talked about it earlier. They're going to want to run the ball. Certain times of the year, especially when we get to the playoffs, the passing game in Cleveland gives way to the running game. I'm not a fan of either one of those players, and the wide receiver core is just so rich with upside young players and free agents that have moved to be the number one receiver at teams, and guys that are double-digit round picks like Marvin Jones, can be a touchdown machine and has been for the last couple of years. No, I don't see that. Beckham, I don't want to spend the premium on. Jarvis, a great football player and great history of him, but he's going to be a 75 catch, 5 touchdown guy and average about 12 yards a catch, and I think we can do better than that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing I want to do before we switch over to our Revelations coverage tonight is ask Farrell about the Carolina receivers. We saw DJ Moore go off the board tonight at the 401 to Brad Kazima. We saw Robbie Anderson go off the board tonight at the 1006 to Stuart Keene. And the other, why am I blanking on the third Carolina receiver, Farrell, that took the place of Curtis Samuel this year?
Balky, you blacked out on me there for a minute, and I think you're back to talking about Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson goes off the board at the 10:05. Chat room helped me out on this too. Curtis Samuel is no longer in Carolina. Who is the other receiver? Oh, it was Terrace Marshall, who has not been drafted yet tonight. So yet, I mean, I'm sure he will be, but he has not been taken yet. What do you make of the Carolina receiver situation for redraft? I mean, if you're drafting in the FFPC main event, in the KFFSC, in the Football Guys Players Championship, is DJ Moore simply the guy to own? Is Robbie Anderson providing a value? Would you draft Terrace Marshall as sort of a flyer late? How do you handle the Carolina receivers this year?
I really like Anderson to repeat the performance he did last year and score more touchdowns. DJ Moore is a top receiver. He's going exactly where he needs to go. Anderson is a steal at double digits right here, a veritable steal. And, Robbie Anderson had a tough time getting going in the NFL. And I've talked a little bit about what I don't like about Terrace Marshall. Now I'm going to talk about what I do like about him. Robbie Anderson is the perfect guy to mentor and line up with Terrace Marshall. There's a lot to be learned from Marshall coming in to be part of this. So I think Anderson will even have a better year than what he had previously. So kudos with the 10th round pick there on Robbie Anderson. And the receivers Parker, Anderson, and Bateman I like better than Cooks, Landry, Brown, and the Cooks, Landry, Brown went in front of them in this round.
I got to tell you, as far as it goes with the Carolina receivers, it's kind of dependent upon Sam Darnold, right? When you look at what he can do in Carolina, should we have reason to believe that once Darnold is acclimated to the Carolina offense and he will be under Matt Rule, are we expecting just a leap forward for him for fantasy purposes? Because if that happens, Farrell, it's going to mean good things for everybody in Carolina, Christian McCaffrey included.
The same ghosts that were in New York are not going to follow him to Carolina. I expect him to be very productive and flourish tremendously in this environment. He's the right coach, right low-key Southern environment for this kid to play. And quite honestly, the Jets, if they hadn't picked second, they wouldn't have given up on this player so quickly. And you can only give up on quarterbacks this early because of the way the contracts are structured now. And I never expected them to lead to this. You used to give your quarterback a lot of time to mature and lead your team in the NFL. Not anymore. Carolina is a very, very astute acquisition of this player. And, with the guys that they have around him, we talked about it last week. They're not playing through the quarterback. They're playing around the quarterback. And this guy's going to be successful with what he's got around him.
You've been listening live to the FFPC's High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, coverage of the Genesis and Revelations drafts tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thrilled to bring you Genesis. What a treat that was, obviously, with the 26ers basically taking over, Farrell, as it were, getting into a lot of redraft conversation tonight. My apologies to everybody involved. I am trying to bring up the Revelations draft right now, and I'm having a bit of issue with it, but we will get to it shortly here. And the great thing about this is, too, we will have the opportunity to have, I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe we'll have the opportunity to have the entire rest of the Revelations draft on the program tonight. So, you know, everything you see, or we'll get to see the completion of the draft, obviously, when it comes to Revelations, as I am bringing it up here right now. I think I almost have it, and I'm vamping for time, so I appreciate everybody putting up with me right now, my voice. All right, I think we have it right now. Yes, we do. Perfect. All right, excellent. Farrell, it's like I always say, you got to be smarter than the machine, and I was indeed that tonight after quite some time. All right, so to get you into the Revelations lineup, ladies and gentlemen, here is the what we have for the Revelations coverage. 2020 champ was Jake Venuti. He is not drafting here tonight, but who is drafting? Dan Williamson and John Daniel, the GOAT District. The GOAT District tandem is drafting first tonight. The overhyped sleeper himself, Dan Williamson, along with John Daniel, drafting 1. Cautiously Dangerous, that's Liz Ballard's team. She is in the 2-hole tonight, followed by Biplab Mandel. Yeah, that's right. He is drafting in the Genesis and Revelations draft. Bitcoin drafting 3rd in this draft after he was selecting 7th in Genesis. Mike and Todd Aaron, the mad genius or geniuses of fantasy football, they are drafting 4th. Jake Felice and Greg McLean picking the 26 Packer team from the 5 spot tonight. Todd Hunter, the Huggers, longtime Revelations competitor. He is drafting 6th. Andrew Schellenberg and David Hofer, Clutch Like Shelley, picking 7th tonight. Robert Marshall, the Fantasy Dum-Dums 26er, invading the Revelations draft tonight. He is picking 8th. Ron Meyer, of course, one of the founding fathers of the Revelations draft. Two-Packer himself drafting 9th, followed by Run to Daylight Inc.'s Todd Burrows. Shane Hallam, the Hallam Hammers, picking 11th, and wrapping things up tonight, it is indeed Eric Sisson. Mr. Eric, it is the Pink Stripes picking 12th tonight, Farrell. All right, so I have the draft up right now. Now, this is going to kind of be a little bit weird because we covered the first 10 rounds of the Genesis draft. I want to kind of pick things up here in the 11th round so we can sort of follow the ADP here, as it were, the best we can. Now, I can tell you that the running backs were not as crazy in this draft, but they did go fairly high. I can tell you. We saw Najee Harris go in the 2nd round here in this draft. Travis Etienne, also a 4th round pick if you're talking about rookies. But let's get into the 11th round here as we provide the pick-by-pick coverage. Kicking things off, it was indeed Blake Jarwin going to the GOAT District overhyped sleepers as their number 2 tight end behind Logan Thomas. Antonio Brown going at the 11:02 to Liz Ballard. Then we have Alexander Madison, the backup to Dalvin Cook. Sure enough, it is Biplab Mandel, a noted Vikings fan, getting Alexander Madison to back up his Dalvin Cook 103 selection tonight. Should mention, too, that Liz Ballard took Travis Kelce at the 102 tonight. It was an interesting first round with McCaffrey going 101, Kelce 102. And then we had 9 straight running backs, followed by Tyreek Hill as the first receiver off the board and the only receiver to go in the first round. Back to the 11th round, Chuba Hubbard is going to go to the mad genius of fantasy football. Those are the Aarons, and Chuba Hubbard goes at the 11:04 tonight. Gerald Everett is going to be backing up Tyler Higbee. The former Rams tight ends sort of reunite in a fantasy standpoint for Jake Felice and the 26 Packer team with Greg McLean there. You have Devin Singletary as the running back number 4 for Todd Hunter's Huggers. Adam Troutman is the starting tight end for Andrew Schellenberg, who is drafting from the 7-hole tonight. Then you have Corey Davis and Mike Williams after that, 2 highly decorated rookie receivers after how high they went in the draft. They have fallen off a little bit, but they still go in the 11th round tonight to Marshall and Meyer back-to-back. Rashad Penny goes off the board to Todd Burrows here in the 11th round at the 10 spot. And then you have Darnell Mooney, a receiver who's really picking up a lot of steam, a lot of buzz out of Chicago to be the number 2 receiver there. And then Rob Gronkowski, the 3rd tight end selected by Eric Sisson, in the 11th round. More to come on that. He may have gone tight end in the next round as well. But let's talk about this here, Farrell. We'll kick things off right at the start of the 11th round. Chuba Hubbard is a guy who, if he would have come out a year ago, Farrell, I feel like he would have been drafted much higher in the NFL draft. He was not. He was a day 3 pick, and you'd like to think that he is indeed the backup to Christian McCaffrey this year. Is he just only a value as a handcuff, or does he have some standalone value as a rookie in 2021?
I think he has standalone value, and the story will tell out as the further we get into the seasons. Hubbard was a necessary pick here because you had to get someone at running back with high upside, because this team is a little bit handcuffed with the fact that they went 3 tight ends in the first 8 rounds. And naturally, I understand Pitts and the Fant, and I believe he stopped there. The 8th-round pick of Evan Ingram was a little overkill here. Would have liked to have seen a running back a little higher up the board. But Hubbard here in the 11th, that's the best we can do. I like Singletary as well, but it's an upside play for the rookie Hubbard.
Gerald Everett was wallowing behind Tyler Higbee last year in Los Angeles. That's not going to be the case anymore. Gerald Everett goes to Seattle, and if they do indeed let Russ cook, as the kids say up there, he's going to have a lot of passing options, Farrell. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, both deep threats that can open up. And by the way, Dwayne Eskridge, too, another burner out of Western Michigan, who, Farrell, I think you sold me on last week on the show, and I'm starting to warm up to him. I think about all 3 of those guys in that Seattle offense. They can all take the top off the secondary. That should leave a lot of stuff open for Gerald Everett. And you look at this draft, I mean, he's not even drafted as a top 15 tight end in FFPC right now.
No, this is a great pick here in the 11th round. It's a player, if you recall, Everett, with his 2-touchdown play against the big game against Kansas City, where the teams scored over 100 points in the Rams-Kansas City matchup. Everett has skills that translate all over the field. He'll be a big, big weapon for Russell Wilson. I have all confidence that Seattle will take benefit of Everett's skills, and I'm happy for him. Higbee, on the other hand, going in a tight end tandem here, going in the 8th round, he's going after a lot of tight ends, and I don't quite understand it, because we should recognize that they have established now a burner with the Rams as well, and we have a quarterback that has a great history of working with the tight end, and I think that's a natural setup. I don't think we move away from the position as the Rams typically have when Matt Stafford comes to town. I think we're going to be a little more tight end friendly with the passing opportunities, and Higbee should benefit from that.
All right, more 11th round, and we'll get into the 12th round coverage here of the Revelations draft here shortly on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Farrell Elliott, Eric Balkman bringing you pick-by-pick coverage here, or as best as we can catch up with these expert drafters. One of those expert drafters we're going to go out to and talk to right now. It is the 201 live on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Who do we have the pleasure of speaking with now?
Hi, it's Todd from PA, picking number 10.
Well, Todd, it is so good to hear your voice on these airwaves once again. And it's obviously everybody listens to your podcast, the Run to Daylight podcast, which is great. Having a lot of great content on there with FFPC and early fantasy football drafting. As far as your team goes here tonight, Todd, what do you think of it so far from the 10 spot? Is it as expected? Are you happy with it? Are you a little miffed? How do you feel about it?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I would say that there was a couple of key spots where there wasn't anyone I really wanted to pick early. As we got into the middle rounds, the 10th spot is a tough spot this year. But I got to be happy that Derrick Henry fell to me at 110. And it's a little risky with Devonta Adams at pick 2-2, but and same things with Miles Sanders. So I feel like I stopped the free fall for Devonta and Miles Sanders. There's risk there, but at the same time, I agree with the other gentleman from earlier. I think push comes to shove, they're going to pay Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to play there. And I think Miles Sanders is still, I'm not that upset by the fact Kerryon and these other running backs are brought in, because I really feel like Miles Sanders is going to be a 2/3, 1/3 guy, which at the end of the third round is plenty.
Let's talk about Devonta Adams here real quick, Todd, because I happen to agree with you. I do think the Packers and Rodgers are going to find a way to make him the starting quarterback for Green Bay come week 1. June 1st is obviously the next big date in this whole saga, when the Packers can trade him with pretty big, significant cap savings. Would you advise people, if they are drafting right now, that this is the time to strike hot on players like Devonta Adams, because you probably won't get them at this time of the kind of a discount after June 1st?
Well, before this, he was going around 1.6 to 1.9. So that's a pretty significant discount to 2.3. So, I was hoping that he wouldn't be there and I wouldn't have to make that choice. But when I look at the draft board and the other people that were there, Michael Thomas went next. Aaron Jones and A.J. Brown. The guy that I would have taken instead of Adams was Waller. So that was a pretty good deal for tree huggers. But, to answer your question directly, you want to always take your risk and figure out how much of risk you can stomach, and, how many leagues you're going to be in, how many shares do you want to have, versus the discount that you're getting on him possibly now. I mean, he's not going to just completely not have value, even if Jordan loves the quarterback, but, he's certainly going to drop a good bit if that ends up happening.
Todd, one of the things that I think fantasy owners are going to try to unlock here for maximum output on their squads this year is the 49ers rushing game. Now, in the Revelations draft that you're in tonight, Andrew Schellenberg takes Trey Sermon as the first 49ers running back off the board here at the 707 pick. Raheem Mostert goes to two-packer Ron Meyer off the board at the 804. Now, you get Jeffrey Wilson here at the 9-10 pick tonight as the third San Francisco running back off the board. And I you participate way more in best balls than I do, but I can't remember a third running back going that high before. I'm sure it's happened. It just doesn't seem like something that's it happens very often. Your thoughts on drafting Jeffrey Wilson there when you already had Sermon and Mostert off the board? Does that mean you're not a believer in either Sermon, Mostert, or both?
Well, I think that Mostert is the guy that I would be the most fearful of drafting. They almost didn't pay him anything last year. Remember, he was on like a rookie-type deal or a real low deal. And, they almost didn't pay him anything and barely paid him when they did. Sermon is my favorite, but Wilson is a good player. And you'll notice later I took Wayne Gallman because the upside is so great if you get it right. So, again, you only want so much risk on a team, but you'll look at a couple situations I did that with. I took Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall. I like both of them at their ADP. But if one of them gets hurt, the other one is going to crush their ADP possibly. I like doing that with later picks because, think about it. The first 3 weeks of the season, what percentage of the guys you draft today in May are going to be on the waiver wire? So I don't mind taking some of these 2-for-1 opportunities and try and turn it into one really deadly asset. You'll notice I took Byron Pringle also earlier than he goes, but he has a good chance to be the number 2 in a great offense, and that's the kind of thing I don't mind chasing this early.
Todd, you've been a wonderful contributor to fantasy football with your podcast and here in the FFPC, and I want to get at least a consideration from you that you will make a trip to Kentucky either online or physically to join us this year and run your podcast from our live event. Can I get just a consideration that might be something that you'll look into?
Send me some info. And
I'm going to send you an info. And I wanted to get that confirmation that you would consider it before I said this. these picks 9 through 14, I wouldn't give you a nickel for too many of them. Now, I don't know what you're thinking here, but tell me about your third tight end.
Well,
I got to learn something about this Tennessee Titan tight end.
Well, I mean, Ferkster has flashed really well as a part-time player. Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis out of this offense, and you've only got Reynolds. So I like that pick, actually. I like the Terrace Marshall pick. I could see why you might not like the Jeffrey Wilson pick and the Cole Kmet pick maybe being a little early. Rashad Penny is, he's going to play. And if Chris Carson goes down again, Rashad Penny could be a really good pick there. So I don't know what your hesitation is with some of these guys, but, that's why I took them.
Well, you and I lined up beautifully with your 16th round pick with Terrell Williams. So you came back on board with me on that player right there. So, I think that I'm going to have to reassess Ferkster a bit down in Tennessee because I may be missing on that one.
I think you might be. A lot of very smart people like him.
By the way, we all follow Todd on Twitter at Todd from PA. That's a single D, Todd from PA. And you actually live streamed your first hour of Revelations of drafting tonight. We did not get a chance to cover it here because we're covering Genesis.
And then I got very, very tired. And even still, I don't think I had my best draft. So I was going to, and I didn't.
Well, listen, doing a podcast with Shane Hallam for an hour, that would take it out of any of us, right?
And then he's picking right behind me, too.
Todd, it is always a pleasure. Check out the Run to Daylight podcast. Obviously, a lot of great guests you've been having on there the last month. Well, I mean, going, in recent history, you've had a lot of great guests on there too. But it was good to hear from you tonight. Good luck the rest of the way in this draft. I know it's almost wrapped up, and good luck this drafting season too. Don't be a stranger, man.
You got it.
Thank you, Todd.
Todd from PA,
nice
ladies and gentlemen. It's good talking to you, Todd. Todd Burrows joining us here on the podcast tonight. Let's squeak in another phone call here from the Revelations draft. We are going out to area code 734 on the HSFF hour. You are live with Balky and Farrell. Who is this?
It's Fancy Dum Dums. How you doing?
Hey,
Robert Marshall. Good to talk to you, dude. It's been too long. So now, Robert, refresh my memory. Did you win Genesis or Revelations recently?
I won, I think it was Revelations. I don't know. I did 2 the one year. I forget which one it was.
I think you won Revelations 2 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly. So tonight,
I went to get in Genesis this year. I went to get into Genesis this year, and it was filled up. So then I signed up with Revelations this year instead. So I was planning on doing Genesis.
The Genesis ones, all those 26ers, man, they don't have lives. All they do is draft together. In Dynasty or Redraft, they're always drafting together. They filled up Genesis right away. You actually get in Revelations tonight, drafting from the 8th spot. If we just got done with the NFL draft. Everybody's grading everybody's draft. How would you grade your draft tonight from the 8th spot, Robert?
I am loving it. I got 3 solid running backs with Zeke, Aaron Jones, and Montgomery. Got 2 killer tight ends with Hockenson and Gasecki. And then Goliday and Juju have huge upside. And then Marquis Brown really came on at the end of last year, and I'm hoping he continues that. Brandon Cooks, he's the only guy in Houston, regardless of who's throwing to him. And then Corey Davis had a good year last year. Going to the Jets, and the rest of it is just really upside. I grabbed 3 quarterbacks, which is kind of odd for me. But again, I think that I saw Tua still there in the 18th round. It's really hard to pass on him if he ends up having a Lamar Jackson type season come up this year.
You think
2 things I noticed about your draft. I thought Carson Wentz was a significant value where you got him, and I think you might end up starting him more than anyone. And the 11th round pick, Corey Davis, that's my favorite pick of the 11th round. I think he'll have a natural connection with this quarterback and outdo anything he did at Tennessee. So your double-digit drafting here is pretty impressive, my friend.
It's
you guys
Robert,
said a couple things. So go ahead.
No. I want to hear what you had to have to say about what we said.
I was going to say that you guys mentioned us 26ers, all we do is draft and we do dynasty and stuff like that. And on that note, we're doing the 4.0, and I just wanted to let Farrell know that he's on the clock, and was hoping that maybe he could pick before the 8 hours is up.
Yeah, I have been on the clock. Every time there's a podcast with Balky, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, I am on the clock. No matter how aggressively I try to pick before the draft, I am always on the clock during the podcast. So, I expected that, and I appreciate the new. And I've done pretty good with getting my draft picks in early.
And Farrell, I'll tell you this right now. Not only have you been getting them in early, but I should pass this along from Hudson Kern-Reeve, who was drafting in Genesis tonight. He said you have been doing much better than just even holding your own. He said you've been doing very good in that draft thus far.
I'm taking everybody less than 25 years of age, and that's been my that's what I'm doing. When I run out of the 25-year-olds, I'm going to go to the 26-year-olds. You get that, Balky? You see what I did there?
I do. I like it. Yeah. Well, that's perfect. That's
how many phone of friends have you been doing before your pick?
I have not. I haven't. Actually, zero. Actually, I've been winging this one on my own, but I do have that phone a friend list, and I reserve the right to use it at any time.
Hey, Robert, just real quick. One of the things I think that was maybe proven to be a myth after last year was receivers going from one team to a different one. New coach, new OC, new offense. We saw last year that's not necessarily a death knell to fantasy value, with a lot of players exceeding expectations. You took Kenny Goliday as your number one receiver tonight in the 5th round after securing Hockenson and those 3 running backs. Your thoughts on Kenny Goliday catching passes from Daniel Jones, knowing that he's going to have one of the best running backs in fantasy football, anchoring the ground game there. You think about Kadarius Toney entering the wide receiver core along with Sterling Shepard already being there, Darius Slayton. Kenny Goliday, what are you expecting from him in 2021?
So being from Detroit, I've watched him for the last however many years. He's stuck on our shameful team who, was, getting passes from Stafford, just chucking the ball down the field. And he is very good at going up to get the ball. He's a big guy. He's a big player. And I think that they're going to use him kind of like Odell Beckham when he was there. Chuck the ball down the field. I think the Giants are, even with Barkley there, they're going to be behind a lot. And you could see last year with Slayton and Shepard, when they had good games, they had very good games. It was all over the board, but I think Goliday is a different type player. And then Juju's the same type of thing. He has some real high upside, some big games. And someone mentioned earlier on the show that, hey, this is a total points league to get your standings. And when you get a guy that has 150 yards, a touchdown or 2, that's a huge week. And then to your point, Diggs and Hopkins change teams. If you have a good player, you have a good player. The end. They're going to perform well regardless of where they're going.
The Dizzle has always said, and I think I brought it up on this show before, I think some other shows too, Baltimore recently has been where receivers go to die, at least for their fantasy value. They sink the first-round pick into Rashad Bateman this year out of Minnesota. They still obviously have Marquis Brown, and Robert, you made him your number 3 receiver as you picked him at the 8:05 tonight. Marquis Brown, when you look at his fantasy output, do you think it's going to be significantly affected by the presence of Rashad Bateman, or perhaps not?
So I don't think that any receiver that's a rookie or coming in like that is going to be that much of a threat. He's had some flashes in his first 2 years. And when you look at what he did in the end of the game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns in the last, I think, 6 games. So he was starting to become more and more of a target. And if you go to the playoffs, you see that continued, and that's a huge sign for me. I always go to the playoffs to check and see, what happened there, especially the Super Bowl, what players stood out, what's the quarterback go to, and he continued to go to him, moving on into the off season, to that, the postseason. So even if he doesn't do that well, he'll be a bye week guy for me because I plan to start 3 running backs, 2 tight ends, and 2 receivers, and he'll just be my flex, even if that's the case.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I brought this up earlier. 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and then 2 flexes. So you have a lot of different ways to go on that. I know this has been a redraft podcast, Robert, but I know you play in, I don't know, probably a dozen plus dynasties with the FFPC. Rookie drafts starting for most rookie drafts. Some have already started, but rookie draft starting tomorrow for a lot of teams. Your thoughts as far as dynasty goes on a player that, maybe you were kind of down on as far as rookies go, but you see the landing spot and you're like, oh, this is probably a guy I got to look at now in my rookie draft. And then conversely, a player that you were really high on, but maybe now not so high on now that you see who drafted him. Any players stand out in either of those categories there for you?
I think Najee Harris landed in an amazing spot there in Pittsburgh. He's that big type of running back. He's going to, just continue to pound the ball, and there's no one there that has performed well. And the other one, Pitts, if you look at the history of Atlanta, having, Gonzo and Crumpler, and they just always seem to have really good tight ends. Hooper even was doing well. No, that was, sorry. Anyway, so I think that's good. And then, he was doing well there. And then I think that, what I thought was weird was Travis Etienne. I really liked him. But going to, it just seems like there's another player in front of him. And it feels more like this could be a Chubb Hunt scenario. And that kind of throws me off.
Well, you're exactly
Robert,
right about the tight end situation at Atlanta. Hayden Hurst this year put up career high numbers for Hayden Hurst, and that it's a whole new world at that position. When we talk about those Baltimore receivers, whether it be Brown, whether it be Bateman, it still remains the fact that Baltimore, Tennessee Titans, these teams are at the very bottom of the list of number of passing attempts. And you take guys that went in the draft later, like Judy, Pittman, Smith. Those are some players in some high volume passing attacks. So I like your reasoning for choosing Brown. I wouldn't have done it, but I really do like your criteria for making that choice, and we'll see how that works out.
And we will see how your team works out here, Robert, in the Revelations draft. It looks pretty good. I think I'm with you. I think I'd feel really good about going to battle with this team as well. You got a lot of playmakers and certainly a great foundation that you built in the first 3 rounds of this draft as well. Nothing but the best to you in your rookie drafts coming up and drafts all summer long. Thank you so much for making the HSFFO a part of your evening. And have a great weekend, dude, and enjoy those rookie drafts.
All right. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys.
Robert Marshall, the fantasy dum-dums, as it were, although he is quite the opposite of that, former guest of the HSFFO before is Robert Marshall, and always good to talk to him. Farrell, we have roughly 27 minutes or so, probably about 22 minutes left in the show. I want to get into some team analysis as much as we can. We'll just focus on Revelation since it's still the one that's up on the board here on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/High Stakes Fantasy Football. We'll kick things off with John Daniel and Daniel Williamson's overhyped sleeper spot from the one hole, and we'll just focus on the skill positions here, not necessarily bringing kickers and defenses into the discussion. But the quarterbacks there are Kyler Murray, Jameis Winston, and Kirk Cousins. The running backs, Christian McCaffrey, Antonio Gibson, Tony Pollard, James Conner, Darrell Henderson, Jermar Jefferson. Receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Lockett, Rondale Moore, Gabriel Davis, Elijah Moore, Tre'Quan Smith. Tight ends being Logan Thomas and Blake Jarwin. Good rookie flavor on this team when you look at it. You think about Rondale Moore, you look at Elijah Moore, Jermar Jefferson, obviously on this team as well. So I think, he probably needs to hit on, I think, maybe not a receiver, but you'd like to think Antonio Gibson's got to be the guy in order to make the running backs come through. And then Logan Thomas basically has to duplicate what he does last year, and then you're looking at a top 3 team in this league, I think.
Oh, I do too, and I very much like what he's done with the rookies. He's got nothing going on here in his double-digit rounds, but great potential. And he wasn't playing catch-up. The team was well constructed, so he wasn't playing catch-up at every position. He's got every reason to hope that he's going to be amongst the top teams in this group.
Liz Ballard drafting at the 2nd spot tonight. The cautiously dangerous squad drafted Russell Wilson as her quarterback. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Carson, Damian Harris, Naheem Hines, Kenneth Gainwell, J.D. McKissick, and Malcolm Brown at running back. Receivers are Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, DJ Chark, Will Fuller, Antonio Brown, Cole Beasley, Kadarius Toney at receiver. Tight end is indeed Travis Kelce, followed by Dawson Knox and Pat Freiermuth. This squad specifically, I think you're fine at tight end and quarterback, obviously. But running back, you're probably going to have to hit on somebody here. I would not be on board with Damian Harris as my number 3. And then, I don't know what the Trevor Lawrence bump is going to mean in Jacksonville, but DJ Chark I'd be a little bit nervous about as my number 3. Obviously, the oft-injured Will Fuller as my number 4. I don't know how I feel about that as well. So you got to stay healthy at receiver, and you got to hit on a running back here.
Yes, and she's going to make it up also with her double-digit wide receiver picks. I love the pick of Beasley. He's dropping too far as I'm concerned. Kadarius Toney in the 15th round will prove to be a steal. Malcolm Brown, we don't have Gaskin on this team, right? I'm missing the first 3 rounds here.
Gaskin is not on this team.
I would probably pick Malcolm Brown as only a handcuff to Gaskin. I would have liked to have seen her continue with some of these excellent rookies that she's picked. I suppose the best upside that she's got here is Gainwell. McKissick is still going to be a great pass catcher, but he's not going to get those 80 passes because he won't have the 15 targets from quarterback Smith. And this year it's going to be a different look for him there. Still a good player, but not going to get those numbers we did last year.
Moving on to Team 3 tonight, that is Bip Lab Mandel's Bipcoin. The quarterbacks are Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson in the 17th, and then Justin Fields. Running backs, Dalvin Cook, Travis Etienne, James Robinson, Alexander Madison, Ramondre Stevenson, Elijah Mitchell. Receivers, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, Cortland Sutton, Rashad Bateman, Brian Edwards. Tight ends, Irv Smith, Robert Tonyan, and Eric Ebron. Farrell, you could not tell that you could not tell that Biplab lives in Minnesota, right? Not with picks like Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith, the Minnesota Golden Gopher standout, Rashad Bateman, current Vikings backup running back, Alexander Madison. A lot of Vikings flavor on this team, to be sure. Interesting that he locks up both the Minnesota and the Jacksonville running back spots, at least. I think he's solid at tight end as well here with Smith, Tonyan, and Ebron. So I think this is one of those solid, if unspectacular teams, but certainly a very competitive team in this division.
No, I'm going to call this team spectacular, Balky, in all sense of the word. At the 17th round, he gets a quarterback, and we don't know that quarterback's competitive situation this year, but at that point, why not? Don't sleep on Elijah Mitchell. We've had guys talking about Jeffrey Wilson and God forbid, Wayne Gallman. Elijah Mitchell brings great comparison and great compliment to Sermon and that and Mostert out there. How about Cortland Sutton as he returns to Denver? And I've got to tell everyone as they're looking at these drafts, we're seeing some of the Packer players drop due to this Aaron Rodgers conversation. But we're not seeing the Denver players rise as I would expect, and that's where the conversations are leading. And so I think any time you can get a standout receiver like Cortland Sutton in the 7th round with what the future may bring him, he's going to do better this year with these two quarterbacks that are there now, or what the future may be bringing him. I love Biplab's team. I think this is a fantastically spectacular roster.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at it too. I mean, like obviously Jefferson and Metcalf are studs, but Robert Woods and Cortland Sutton is your 3 and 4. That is really good as well. And like I said, to lock up both the Vikings and Jaguars ground game for now, anything can happen. I think I am, as I take a second look at this, I think I am a little bit more bullish on this squad as well. And Biplab, by the way, drafting 2 teams at once, certainly an accomplishment to come up with something as good as he did in Revelations. All right, on to Mike and Todd Aaron, the mad geniuses of football. Let's look at their squads here. The quarterbacks are Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, and Baker Mayfield. Running backs, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Ronald Jones, Chuba Hubbard, Damian Williams. Wide receivers, T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, Devontae Smith, T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell, and Emmanuel Sanders. Tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Noah Fant, and Evan Ingram. Farrell, to me, this team is very strong at running back. It is very strong at tight end, and it is definitely good enough at quarterback. But you look at the receivers, and there's a lot of youth on this team. Obviously, getting Hilton and Campbell and locking up some good Colts production there helps. But when your top 3 receivers are Higgins, Claypool, and Devontae Smith, probably going to need minimum of 1, probably 2 to win this league that they got to hit. But not a whole lot of weaknesses on this roster outside of that.
Yeah, and they did not have to subject themselves to the weakness at receiver that they have. They went overkill at both the tight end. Ingram was superfluous. They didn't need him, and they certainly didn't need Baker Mayfield. It could be argued which backup quarterback to Stafford that they didn't want to have. There's too much pink on this board, and three quarterbacks on one team is way too much, especially with the depth of wide receivers. If you look at some of the guys that they could have grabbed and some of the guys that are still on the board that went undrafted, especially a rookie that I happen to like from Clemson who is now at Kansas City, you are in the situation here where their lineup construction is somewhat questionable, and I think the losing receiver in the mix of all the players that are over at Cincinnati is Higgins. I think he's the one that loses volume of catches and targets. So what an excellent team that needed more yellow.
I am looking at the next squad here, and it is Jake Felice and Greg McLean, former winner of Revelations before, by the way, is Jake Felice. Let's look at this squad here. Josh Allen is the lone quarterback. The running backs are indeed Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Javontay Williams, Tariq Cohen, and Anthony McFarland. Receivers, Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman, Michael Gallup, Jalen Reagor, Henry Ruggs, A.J. Green, K.J. Hamler. Tight ends, Tyler Higbee, and Gerald Everett. All right, Farrell, you look at this squad. I have no quarrel with the running backs. A lot of good youth up at the top of the draft. A lot of guys with a potential for a lot of volume. We talked about Higbee and Everett. Hayden Hurst on this team as well, too. Hayden Hurst now ostensibly the backup in Atlanta if he does not get released or traded. And Josh Allen obviously is fine at quarterback. The receivers, though, again, some youth here. Ridley's going to be a stud. I think Deebo Samuel, when he's healthy, he'll be all right. Michael Pittman certainly could be the number 1 receiver in Indianapolis. But after that, Gallup, Reagor, Ruggs, Green, Hamler. There's a lot of unknowns there on the receiver depth on this team. Not saying that this team isn't competitive, but that's the question mark I have with this squad.
And I think they've got a crystal ball. These guys have obviously made the right decision with one quarterback. You're going to draft a quarterback like Allen, live with your one quarterback, and go get someone off the waiver wire. We can't belabor that enough. You take a situation, if you look at Cohen may be what he should be with this team. He'll be listed as a running back, but he may play slot receiver now for the Bears, and that would be very advantageous for fantasy players. Henry Ruggs is a great pick here in the 14th round with upside. If what I am saying might happen with Rodgers, then K.J. Hamler is a steal at 17, and we don't know. We just talked about Hayden Hurst having the best year he ever had. Maybe Atlanta doesn't put that player on the bench. We see something move with Julio Jones with the Falcons, and then we have a situation where Hurst is on the field along with Pitts, and Pitts looks more like a slot receiver, a move tight end, and Hayden Hurst gets targets as well. I think that's a steal at the 18th round and shows some creative thinking that this team, A.J. Green's day is gone and past. I would have loved to have seen a younger player there. I like this team, and certain trends could develop that will put this team over the top. They're at the top already.
Yeah, you and I both liking this team from Jake Felice and Greg McLean. One team who does not, or one player that does not like this team, Jake Felice, in the chat room right now, lamenting his performance in the Revelations draft tonight, saying
well,
he
then it'll win a
$150
championship.
down the toilet.
When a drafter doesn't like his team, you can surely bet that team's going to make a nice run.
And that has been my experience as well, my friend. The more I dislike a team, the better it often performs. All right, moving on to Todd Hunter in the 6th spot tonight. He goes with, at quarterback, Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow. He gets Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, Chase Edmonds, Devin Singletary, Tevin Coleman, Kerryon Johnson, Darrell Williams, and Jerick McKinnon at running back. A lot of running backs. Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Jamison Crowder at receiver. Tight ends are Darren Waller and Dallas Goedert. You know what's interesting about this team is Rodgers and Burrow, great at quarterback. Waller, Goedert at tight end, that's fantastic as well. The receivers, okay, so McLaurin I like, Evans I like, Jerry Jeudy, I don't know. Landry I like. Devontae Parker, say what you will about him, but 13th round, I can get on board with that. Jamison Crowder may or may not still be cut. We don't know about that. But the volume of running backs here, if Kamara performs, which he should, that's going to be a great pick. But then you have Hunt, Edmonds, Singletary, Coleman, Kerryon Johnson, Darrell Williams, Jerick McKinnon. I think the one thing that all of them have in common, they all have an opportunity, some slimmer than others, to massively outperform their draft spot. And I think that's what Todd did. You can't be elite everywhere, so he went volume and running back here, Farrell.
Yeah, and Todd, I think you needed to quit drafting running backs at the 14th spot. If you were going to draft one, let's draft a younger guy with some upside. I don't think he did himself much.
Michael Carter, right?
With these three, yeah. I don't think he did himself very well with these three remaining running backs. Crowder is maybe he's seeing a landing spot for Crowder that no one else sees right now, because I think his days as a Jet are over. But all in all, this team has a little bit of a last year feel to it. It did not. He did not go deep into the youthful players that I think could make a difference for him. I would have liked to have seen that.
Moving on to team number 7 tonight in the Revelations draft. It is Andrew Schellenberg and David Hofer picking from the 7th spot. Justin Herbert was the lone quarterback. The running backs, Austin Eckler, Trey Sermon, Michael Carter, A.J. Dillon, Gus Edwards. Receivers, A.J. Brown, Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Mecole Hardman, Denzel Mims, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Russell Gage. Tight ends, Adam Troutman, O.J. Howard, and Harrison Bryant. Farrell, you touched on this a little bit before with Josh Allen and Velicia's team with Greg McLean. Own the one quarterback, right? If you're going to draft a quarterback that high, own it. Just go with that. A lot of running backs on this squad. Here's the thing. They took 5 running backs, but they were all in the first 10 rounds. So you have a lot of potential for volume there. They get 4 receivers in the first 5 rounds, and then they take some upside guys late, Waddle, Hardman, Mims, St. Brown, Gage. I think they did a good job there. To me, this team kind of relies upon how good Adam Troutman's going to be for New Orleans now that he is ostensibly the starter. I know they got Nick Bennett there as well. And then, outside of that, you have O.J. Howard kind of caught in the numbers game in Tampa, and then Harrison Bryant late. If they get the production out of Troutman, this team is going to be competitive to the end. It's just all dependent upon if they're going to get that or not.
Yeah, they've got to get some Troutman here, or they've got to go to the waiver wire. It's very, very difficult in the FFPC and find production at tight end, because I don't think it's coming from Howard or Bryant. There's a player we have not talked about at all, Balky, almost St. Brown, and I've been looking at some film of him over the last week. It's a very, very physical player. I did not catch that in his senior year at USC. I like the way this player plays, and I can elevate him to be, in a spread offense at Detroit, a kind of player that you'd be very impressed with. So I really like that pick as their double-digit receiver. In a group of receivers that I'm all for, Waddle, Mims with what he's got behind him, it can now go forward with the new quarterback. And Hardman may not have caught anything in the Super Bowl, but he's still there again. A rookie receiver drafted to this team should have been drafted somewhere in this draft. I just can't find it.
I want to move on here, and we don't have to spend a ton of time with Robert Marshall's team here because we did talk to him quite significantly about 25 minutes ago on the show. Well, maybe we can be honest with the listeners and tell them how much we think this team sucks now that he's not on the air with us. But let's move on and go forward with his squad. Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz, Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Kenyon Drake, Phillip Lindsay, Salvin Ahmed at running back, Kenny Goliday, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquis Brown, Brandon Cooks, Corey Davis, and Alan Lazard at receiver, T.J. Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki, Mo Alley Cox at tight end. Quite frankly, Farrell, I don't have a whole lot of nitpicking to do on this team. I guess they're maybe not top-heavy at receiver, but I'm not seeing a real big weakness on this squad.
Drafted a kicker too early, and that might not be the kicker that you want to take. He's got great name recognition. They drafted a defense very early. But you know what? It's a very good team, and anyone that can take a quarterback in the 17th round, which is I think is the quarterback he's going to use the most, I'm impressed with that. I've been drafting Wentz, and I haven't waited to the 17th round. I'm going to try it. I doubt if I'll be successful.
The official mascot of the HSFFO and the unofficial mascot of the Revelations draft is indeed Ron Meyer, two-packer picking from the 9-hole tonight. He gets his boy out of Florida State at the 109 in Cam Akers. Before he gets that, Matt Ryan is his lone quarterback. To go with Cam Akers, Raheem Mostert, David Johnson, Keyshawn Vaughn, Darrington Evans, Joshua Kelly, and Mark Ingram. Receivers, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp, Mike Williams, Christian Kirk, and Tylan Wallace. Tight ends are Hunter Henry and Jared Cook. So I know, I was trying to follow a text chain with him and some other people during the draft tonight. He was busy buying digital horses, NFTs with Ethereum during the draft tonight. He had a lot of stuff going on. And so, Farrell, I think the thing that we look at is a little bit of overkill with receivers with 5 of them in the first 6 rounds, and I think his running backs kind of suffered because of it. Henry and Cook, we'll see. With that, I mean, you kind of got to know which one to start on a week-to-week basis between those two. I don't know if you're going to wait to draft a quarterback until round 12, I probably would have backed him up with somebody else, but I can see the argument for not doing it. But the receiver game, obviously very strong with two-packer in this particular league.
And I look at this, and I think that two-packer is stuck in Kentucky where you must start 3 wide receivers, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he's here with us. And, his tight ends, one's a former Charger and one's a current Charger. You got to be impressed with that. Mostert and Johnson, one of them is still going to put up numbers, and Mostert really is not respected like I respect him around the league. I think Two-Packer's got a team here. And old Josh Kelly in there, I haven't seen it yet, but I think Josh has still got a player in him. He's going to make an NFL player, and he might get some opportunity to do that, especially around the goal line this year.
Moving on to Todd Burrows, we talked to him about his squad. We don't have to dwell on this one a whole lot. Dak Prescott at the quarterback position, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, Jeffrey Wilson, Rashad Penny, Latavius Murray, Wayne Gallman, and Ty Johnson at running back, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall, Byron Pringle, Tyrell Williams at receiver, Jonnu Smith, Cole Kmet, and Anthony Ferkser at tight end. Yeah, Farrell, you probably didn't see this, but in the chat tonight, Todd was talking about the strategy for drafting a league like this here in early May, and it's just like, you want to shoot for these home runs later on. The singles and the doubles don't necessarily do you any good, and I think that's what he did with guys like Ferkser and Terrace Marshall and Byron Pringle and, Wayne Gallman even later on in this draft. So I think that the swing, there were plenty of swings and misses here. Could have been some swings and hits, though, too, for Todd.
I would have liked to have talked to Todd about Adam Thielen because this is a player that I can't figure out. Does he come with the same reception total as he did last year? And it's hard to predict those TDs, especially the big number he had. But I I respect this player, and I would like to have him rostered. I wonder if the 5th round is the right place for him. But if he touches on the production he had last year, that's a real steal there.
Jake Belish chiming in the chat. Two-Packer drafting like it's 2018. Also, I believe it was the Fantasy Fool posting in. Two-Packer is the Revelations as Mitch is to the frat and old school. Straight Godfather. I definitely agree with that. No question here with Two-Packer in regards to Revelations. Okay, Shane Hallam with the Hallam Hammers. Jalen Hurts is his lone quarterback from the 11 spot. Nick Chubb, Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, Zach Moss, Jamal Williams, Javian Hawkins at running back. Receivers are Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Laviska Shenault, Curtis Samuel, Darnell Mooney, Josh Reynolds, Brashad Perriman, Nico Collins. Tight end is George Kittle, Austin Hooper, and Donald Parham. Farrell, I'll tell you, there's a lot of players on here that I don't necessarily think I would have drafted, not necessarily saying that they're bad picks. We already talked about Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin, tonight to some extent. But getting into the rest of this squad here, I think this is a competitive team, but he's going to have to hit on guys like CeeDee Lamb in the 4th, Laviska Shenault in the 7th, Zach Moss in the 8th, the 9th, beg your pardon. These are all players that I would be okay taking. I just feel like I would not have taken them as early as Shane would have.
Yeah, I very much like what he did with Shenault here because I think that's a fine ball player. Curtis Samuel, I think, is going to have a significant season. He's buying into the Mooney hype, and I've got to get caught up with that. Josh Reynolds in the 13th round, I suppose, again, limited by the amount of balls that are going to be in the air in Tennessee. Perriman, a lot of people still believe in Perriman. My host on the KFFSC hour, Robbie Fetcher, is one of them. I don't get it, but if they go to a spread offense there, that's pretty good. I like these players. I'm like you, Balky. I don't know if I would have put them together this way. It amazes me. One of the things is that Davis is in the 5th and Gaskin is in the 6th. Looks like it would flip around the other way, but they were close.
Yeah, very close, and for sure. And I'll tell you, one player that's a huge fan of the Hallam Hammers is the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak, who loves the Mooney pick here in the 11th round. He chimed in on Mooney earlier, facing no competition from the Bears as far as the draft goes, and he thinks Andy Dalton, Justin Fields more than competent enough to get Darnell Mooney the football this year for Chicago. And he said, don't forget about George Kittle. He's going to be a difference maker here, the number 2 tight end off the board for the Hallam Hammers tonight to get him at the 202. So maybe more of a competitive team than I'm giving it credit for. But listen, I don't want to sell Shane Hallam short because he has certainly done this a lot longer than me and had a lot of success at it. All right, final team we will get into tonight. It's Eric Sisson's Pink Stripes team at the 12 spot tonight. The quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. The running backs, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Marlon Mack, James White, Sony Michel. The receivers, Tyreek Hill, Tyler Boyd, Nelson Aguilar, Marvin Jones. And then tight ends, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Rob Gronkowski, and Christopher Herndon. Farrell, this is probably, of all the teams we've looked at tonight, this is probably the most unique one, I guess I can say that, as far as construction goes. You don't necessarily see a team going with 2 quarterbacks in the top 6 rounds. You had him drafting 4 tight ends in the top 12. He didn't draft his 3rd wide receiver until he had already drafted 4 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks. Not a big fan of the running back depth. Leonard Fournette and Melvin Gordon is your 2 and 3. Todd Gurley is your 4. I don't like it all. It's just it's not my favorite. It's not a team I go to bat with. But Eric Sisson has proved me wrong before.
Well, and I like his 14th round pick. I think he got good value in Jones. Aguilar has been going later, but you could make an argument that he's going to have a successful season. Yeah, we got a lot of tight ends here. I think he might end up with Andrews and Ertz playing every week, and if he can figure out where to play Gronk, and when to play Gronk, then he's in good shape. He could have done worse than Tyler Boyd, but he needed more yellow on the board. he can go to the waiver wire and get rid of some of these older running backs and pick up some of these receivers, because there's a lot of receivers that went undrafted here that are going to make their mark during the season. And while over a 17-week schedule, those receivers' numbers might not carry the weight for a full season, but I think you're looking at guys amongst this younger group that by week 6, 7, and 8 will be really getting some strong opportunities and can really take your team to a different height once they get more touches and more targets in the lineup. So there's some work to be done with this team, but it looked like one thing this drafter was doing, he was having some fun with it. And, he drafted some players that may or may not be playing this year, it's the tight end situation. He's playing keep away at tight end and quarterback, and for that I'll give him an A+ in success.
For what it's worth, Fantasy Fool posting in the chat room tonight that Eric's system was having some connectivity issues, did not want to draft the two quarterbacks early, so perhaps that affected the rest of his draft. We shall see. If I know Eric Sisson, he is going to be a beast on the waiver wire and turn this into a contender. Very, very stiff competition in Revelations this year, maybe more so than we've seen in recent years. So it is always a pleasure to cover their draft as well as Genesis draft, and always a pleasure to get Farrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, his input on it. Farrell, cannot thank you enough for hopping on an hour early and doing 2 full hours tonight. Can't wait to do it. We're going to do it again next Thursday. Not live pick-by-pick draft coverage, but we'll do another HSFF hour on Thursday night, man.
Looking forward to it, Balky.
Farrell Elliott, you follow him on Twitter at @JFarrellElliott. You check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. I want to thank him. I want to thank all of our callers tonight, Brent Studebaker, Andy Lund, Darren Armani, Todd Burrows, and, of course, Robert Marshall for hanging out with us and talking a little fantasy football as we did this live draft coverage for 2 full hours tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. We will return not next Friday. We'll be on the air next Thursday at 10/9 Central. It is going to be 2020 Genesis champ and 2021 Genesis competitor Brad Kazima will be our guest here on the HSFF Hour next week. Can't wait to talk to him about how he thinks his draft went tonight. Register for the best ball leagues today at the FFPC, and don't forget to get in on the Dynasty startups right now, myffpc.com, as well as that 2021 Football Guys early bird, myffpc.com. Get a free $35 credit for every Football Guys team you sign up for prior to June 30th and draft before July 15th. We'll do that up to 3 times for you. Save $100 in the FFPC main event today. We'll get these draft boards posted on social media and everything. Good luck in your rookie draft. Happy Mother's Day. Your weekend starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. It was broadcast live and heard around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
One other thing I forgot to mention, ladies and gentlemen, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship checkered flag competition right now at KFFSC.com. And remember, you can save $100 off your first FFPC main event team right now and $400 off each additional team. I know it's rookie draft weekend for all of you playing in the FFPC Dynasty Leagues. Good luck on that. Have fun with it. Enjoy your drafts. Enjoy all the trades and the trade offers. It's always a fun weekend on rookie draft weekend. To kick things off with that. Thanks so much for listening. Happy Mother's Day to my mom and my wife. Allison Chains is warming up right now. I got to go. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next Thursday at 10/9 Central.